It started like any other weekday evening. I had just tossed my scrub top into the laundry hamper, poured myself a glass of lemon water, and collapsed onto the couch with my legs tucked under me. My apartment was quiet, peaceful in the kind of way that only single, child-free, and family-distant living could offer. I unlocked my phone to check emails, my body still humming from a 12-hour shift at the ER. Buried between a Costco promo and a payment reminder was an email titled, Family Travel Planning, Zoom link. No context, just a subject line, a time, and a link. I checked the timestamp. The meeting had started 4 minutes ago. I clicked without thinking. The screen loaded, then blinked. I was met with the words, Host has locked the meeting. I blinked again. Was it a mistake? A glitch? The screen had frozen on one slide, just long enough for my eyes to catch it. Confirmed passengers, Dad, Mom, Seraphine, Adrian, 4 packs. That was it. Not 5. Not 6. 4. No mention of me. No note. No follow-up. Just omission. Not forgotten. Ignored. I sat there, blinking at my reflection on the screen, the blue glow outlining my tired face. I didn't refresh. I didn't text anyone. I closed the laptop quietly, like you close a diary after reading something too honest to face. Then, I walked into the kitchen, opened the drawer where I kept my bills and notes, and pulled out a small notebook labeled Family Expenses. I flipped past pages and pages of Venmo screenshots, old texts, receipts. I picked up a pen, drew a line underneath the last entry, and wrote, Zoom call, no invite, no seat. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later. It was a message from Seraphine. Hey, just so you know, we're finalizing Maui plans. You can still join if you cover your own ticket. Business class, $7,000. LMK. $7,000. Like it was a brunch split. Like I was a guest at a party I didn't ask to attend. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I could have said something. Could have reminded her of the time I covered Dad's MRI when their insurance lapsed. Could have brought up how I lent her $20,300 when Adrian's commission didn't come through last spring. But I didn't. Instead, I stared at the screen and whispered, Message received. That silence said more than I ever could, and I meant it. 2 months earlier, I had paid the deductible on Dad's hospital visit. No one asked. I just did it. I was the only one with decent insurance and no dependents. The next message I got from Mom after that. Seraphine says she needs help upgrading flights. You can pitch in, right? No mention of the hospital. No thank you. Just another ask, phrased like a favor for them, but an obligation for me. I had brushed it off then. Told myself they just didn't realize how much they leaned on me. That maybe if I kept showing up, they'd eventually see me. But this time, this Zoom, this list of 4, made something click. They didn't forget me. They erased me. That night, after a long shower and another silence-filled dinner, I pulled out my phone and opened the voice memo app. I recorded one sentence. Maybe I won't be in the photo. Maybe I never was. But one day, they'll learn this isn't about distance. It's about dignity. And I meant every word of it. Because family isn't just blood or shared calendars. Family is acknowledgement. And when you're asked to pay for your own seat at a table you helped build, maybe it's time to stop asking and start walking away. And the next time they try to board a flight without me, they won't even realize I'm the one who decides whether it takes off. The air felt thinner at that hour. Maybe it was just the altitude, or maybe it was the quiet judgment humming under the white walls of the private terminal. I arrived at 7:20 sharp, dressed plainly in a beige blouse and black slacks, the kind of outfit that neither announces nor apologizes. I kept my hair tied back, makeup minimal, no reason to look like I was trying too hard. I walked past the valet with a polite nod, gripping my phone where my digital boarding pass glowed. The check-in desk was just ahead, manned by a crisp-looking young man with 2 white teeth and a practiced smile. Hi, I offered. Zinnia Harlow. I'm with the Green Party, private charter. He scanned my code. His smile faltered. He scanned again. I'm sorry, Ms. Harlow, he said, his voice neutral, like he was reading off a screen. You're not listed. We were told it's a 4-person party. My stomach didn't drop. It hollowed. I didn't ask him to check again. Didn't raise my voice or show him the email thread from Mom that vaguely referenced finalizing things. Instead, I stepped aside, slowly, like I'd walked into the wrong funeral. And there they were. Through the frosted window, I saw my family. Mom in her crisp linen shirt adjusting her sunglasses, Dad flipping through the Wall Street Journal like he hadn't spent the past month pretending not to see me at family dinners. Seraphine stood with Adrian, holding her phone at an angle only influencers could maintain, light bouncing off her skin as she pouted into the lens. No one looked around, no one asked where I was, because I wasn't supposed to be here, not really. I took a breath through my nose, pressed my lips together, and stepped further away from the counter. The agent didn't say another word. Neither did I. A seat nearby gave me a view of the glass, one-way privacy for the rich, two-way humiliation for me. I watched as they moved through security, laughed with the flight crew, posed near the jet's steps like it was a film set. Not one of them looked behind them. Then Dad turned. For 1 second, his eyes met mine. He saw me, fully. And instead of motioning or nodding or offering even a trace of remorse, he looked away, down, like I was someone else's mistake. I didn't flinch, I just stared, letting the moment settle in my chest like ash. I would remember it, not as proof of abandonment, but as confirmation. I was never part of the plan. From my seat, I saw Seraphine raise her phone again. She switched to video. I knew that face, the followers are watching face. "Jet life with the fam," she sang into the camera. She twirled toward Mom, then Dad, then Adrian, flashing their designer luggage like props. At the end, she turned the camera on herself with a wink. "Some people just don't make the cut," she said, with a laugh that could slice. "7K or stay home?" My throat didn't tighten, my eyes didn't burn. Not this time. I sat still, phone in hand, legs crossed, and watched my own erasure become content. They didn't see me as family, they saw me as filler, as funding. And now, not even that. Eventually, the lounge emptied. I gathered my bag, ordered a rideshare, and made my way back outside. The air had warmed slightly, but I didn't remove my jacket. I kept my hands deep in my pockets, fingers curled around my phone like it could anchor me. The ride back to my Airbnb was quiet. The driver didn't speak, and I didn't break the silence. As we passed the runway, I caught one last glimpse of the jet climbing into the sky, disappearing into a blue that felt far too gentle for what they'd done. I unlocked my phone, opened a new note, titled it, "Final Invoice," and I started writing. By the time I got back to my Airbnb, the sky had turned into that overcast blue that can't decide between morning and misery. I left my shoes by the door, tossed my bag onto the armchair, and sank into the creaky love seat by the window. My body was stiff, but my mind wouldn't settle. I opened my phone to mute a dozen notifications I hadn't had the patience to check earlier. But just as my finger hovered over the Do Not Disturb toggle, one alert froze me. $12,000 posted, Jet Reserve NTL. My heart dropped, then immediately flared in disbelief. I clicked into my business credit portal. The account linked to that charge was the company card I used for vendor payments. Not family trips, not private jets, not this. I refreshed the screen. The merchant name was unmistakable. The amount wasn't pending, it was cleared, approved. I stared at the transaction details. The flight route matched the one they had taken this morning. Same terminal, same charter line. Only the payment method, mine. I didn't panic. I logged out, stood up, and walked to the tiny kitchenette. I ran cold water into a glass with shaking hands, took one sip, and sat down again. I opened my laptop, logged into my business dashboard, and pulled up the vendor transaction history. There it was. Jet Reserve NTL. The invoice was attached. Not only had they used my card, but my name was also listed under the liability clause. Authorized representative, Zinnia Harlow. Except, I never authorized anything. I never signed. I hadn't even known about the booking until Seraphine's smug text. I clicked through the metadata. Someone had entered my company login credentials. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. The IP address wasn't mine. I rubbed my temple, leaned back, and whispered to no one, "They didn't just forget me. They used me." Then I remembered a voicemail I'd dismissed at the time. It had come from Mom 2 weeks earlier, while I was driving home after another back-to-back shift. "Sweetheart," she had said, her voice syrupy soft, "we might need to list the plane under your policy. It'll save us on premium. Nothing major, just a formality. Thanks, love you." I hadn't even listened to the full thing before deleting it. My mother had a way of framing requests as obligations already agreed upon. It had always been easier to say yes than to deal with her guilt-laced follow-ups, and I had said yes, without reading, without checking, without questioning. I felt like a fool. Not for being tricked. No, I was used to that. I felt foolish for believing that, just once, they might treat me like family and not an extension of their Amex. I clicked out of the expense log, opened a blank document, and titled it in bold capital letters, "Jet Dispute, Harlow Evidence." Then I created subfolders: emails, transactions, legal, recordings. In a new spreadsheet, I typed, "Patterns of access misuse, last 24 months. Underneath it, line by line, I began listing everything. April 14th, $2,500 loan to Seraphine. No repayment. May 3rd, covered dad's hospital deductible. No acknowledgement. June 8th, paid for Adrian's auto repair. Now, jet reserve. $12,000. I sat still, fingers poised above the keys, staring at the folder names. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was calculating. I was remembering. Because there's a difference between rage and realization. Rage explodes. Realization builds. And mine was long overdue. They didn't make a mistake. They made a choice. And now I was making mine. If they're bold enough to spend my money without asking, what else have they taken without telling me? Later that evening, I sat alone in my apartment in Austin, lights low, the only sound in the room the faint hum of my fridge. I had just poured myself a glass of red wine, something I rarely did unless the noise in my head got louder than usual. That night, it was deafening. I replayed the voicemail from Mom. I had listened to it 3 times already, but each repeat burned deeper than the last. "It's just a small insurance technicality, sweetheart. You're the responsible one, you understand." I let the message run to the end again, then hit pause. Not delete. I wasn't deleting anything anymore. Responsible? Useful. The words echoed. When had those become my titles instead of daughter, sister, human? They didn't want me. They wanted access. A line of credit that didn't argue, didn't ask, didn't exist unless needed. I hadn't been invited to the planning, or the trip, or the memory, but I had been deemed reliable enough to underwrite it, silently, safely. I sipped the wine and opened my tablet. I hadn't planned to look at social media that night, but curiosity, it's a knife disguised as instinct, got the better of me. I clicked Seraphine's latest story. The video loaded instantly. There they were. Champagne flutes clinking, Mom in her silk scarf, Adrian's laugh echoing in the background. The kind of laugh people post when they're trying to say, "We're better than you." And there was Seraphine, camera turned toward her as she declared, "Just us, the real core." A flash of a photo I'd taken last summer appeared, except this time, I was cropped out. I had framed that shot. I remembered that day. The lighting had been perfect at sunset, and I'd told them where to stand, how to angle. I wasn't in the frame, by choice, and now, by editing, I wasn't in the family either. I closed the video and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. "The real core," I whispered. My mouth curled, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. I opened a new email draft, "To whom it may concern at Jet Reserve Intoil." I typed in silence. I documented the fraudulent charge, the unauthorized use of my insurance, the pattern of family misuse. I didn't send it, not yet. I saved it to a folder I'd just created called Timeline of Reclaiming. A notification pinged. My mind pulled back to something that had happened 2 months ago, during a rare family dinner. We had gathered at Dad's favorite steakhouse to celebrate Adrian closing a deal. I had picked up the tab, quietly, as always. In the middle of a toast, Seraphine had giggled and said, "Zinnia handles all the boring parts. She's our CFO by blood. We love her for that." Everyone laughed. At the time, I smiled too. I thought they meant it as affection, as respect, but now I saw it clearly for what it was. They didn't laugh with me. They laughed because I was useful, predictable, safe, the one who didn't push back. The one who made everything work behind the scenes without needing a seat at the table, and nobody corrects a lie when the lie keeps their lives easier. That night, I opened a second document and started outlining each major financial support instance I had offered the family. Medical bills, tuition offsets, travel logistics. I labeled it structural contributions, unpaid. If I'd only ever been the help, it was time I stopped cleaning up after them. It was nearly midnight when I gave in and picked up my tablet again. I should have been asleep, but the day had left too many bruises in places no pillow could soften. I hadn't planned to check social media, but one tag caught my eye in a gossip thread I'd never followed. Family influencer caught in shady private jet drama? My name was in the comments. Not just my name, my face. I tapped the link and waited. The video buffered for a second, then played. It was Seraphine, of course. Glossy lips, freshly blown-out hair, a private lounge behind her like a stage set. She was pouting at the camera, but I knew the difference between her performance and her pleasure. This was joy, wrapped in mockery. She mimicked my voice, not perfectly, but enough to wound. $7,000 for business class? Oh no, thanks. I'm budgeting this month. Laughter echoed off-screen. Isolde's distinctive laugh, sharp and thin. Then Adrian's, low and smug. Seraphine winked at the lens and said, "Jet life." Not everyone can hang. $7,000 entrance fee, honey. My stomach twisted, not from embarrassment, but something heavier. Rage, yes, but more than that. Recognition. They weren't hiding the cruelty anymore. They were monetizing it. I watched the video again, not because I needed to confirm the insult, I believed her the first time, but because I wanted to memorize every pause, every smirk, every second they felt invincible at my expense. They had weaponized my silence into spectacle. I closed the app and stared at the ceiling. It was quiet now, quieter than it should have been. Not long after, a message popped up on my screen, a text notification. At first glance, it looked harmless, but the preview read, "Just make sure Zinnia doesn't ruin this. It has to look perfect." It was from Isolde. I clicked it open, hoping maybe, just maybe, it had been taken out of context. It hadn't. I read it once, then again, then one last time. It wasn't a misfire. It wasn't meant for me. But it had arrived, and that was enough. I didn't reply. What could I say? That I was already erased? That I'd stopped being a daughter the minute I stopped paying bills without question? Perfect. That word again. Perfect has never had room for me, I said out loud, to no one, just to feel the weight of the words outside my throat. I let the phone drop beside me and closed my eyes, but not to sleep, just to block out the echo. Years ago, at a backyard BBQ we hosted after Seraphine got engaged, she made a joke that everyone thought was hilarious. "Zinnia's idea of first class is uber black," she said, while Adrian howled. Even Dad cracked a grin. Lucien had been standing next to me then. I remember looking up at him, hoping he'd say something, anything. He didn't. He just handed me another soda and changed the subject. I had told myself it was harmless back then, just a joke. But now, with every video clip and message, that laugh returned louder. It was never about fun. It was about hierarchy. That's when I sat up, reached for my laptop, and opened a new spreadsheet. I titled it, Red Lines, Financial Emotional. 2 columns, what they did and what I can prove. Under what they did, I typed, used my corporate card for jet booking without permission, posted video mocking my financial limits, shared internal family decisions on social platforms, labeled me as the budget burden in front of thousands under what I can prove. I began uploading screenshots, receipts, voice memos, and email trails. I wasn't planning revenge. I was preparing for clarity. They had turned me into a joke. But the difference between a joke and a jab is that one ends in laughter. The other leaves a scar. The next afternoon, sunlight spilled through the blinds like nothing had happened. The Denver Airbnb felt quieter than usual, like even the furniture had learned to brace itself around me. I sat at the dining table, phone in hand, rereading the message I'd just sent. I know what you did. This is your only chance to make it right. Simple, direct, no drama, just enough to remind her I wasn't clueless, and I wasn't silent anymore. It didn't take long for the reply to come in. Not a message, a voicemail. I stared at the notification for a while before pressing play. Isolde's voice filled the room, and somehow it made the walls feel colder. Zinnia, sweetheart, you're taking things too personally. You always do. This is why we don't include you in these things. It's just so exhausting trying to keep everything smooth. She sighed dramatically at the end, as if she were the one being wronged. I didn't yell, didn't even replay it. I just hit save. Another exhibit for the folder. I muted the phone and set it face down. My jaw tightened, but I kept still. I was done reacting. That's what they counted on, me flaring up, giving them something to label as difficult, emotional, unstable. Not this time. Minutes passed before another ping lit up the screen. Lucian. His name still made my heart shift slightly, like muscle memory hadn't caught up to logic. Heard you were left off again, his message read. They're saying it was your choice not to come. Want to talk? I stared at it for a moment, thumb hovering. Then I typed back. Not yet, but thank you. Even he had heard the alternate version. They were rewriting it already. The narrative machine had started. Zinnia, the aloof one. Zinnia, the distant one. Zinnia, the burden with too many feelings. They didn't lie because they had to. They lied because they knew I wouldn't defend myself. Until now. I opened my laptop and logged into my expense system. It took less than 5 minutes to compile the full draft. Jet reserve deposit, $12,000. Insurance override, unauthorized April 14th, $2,300 loan to Seraphine May 3rd. Dad's emergency deductible. August 9th. Adrian's business marketing campaign. Gifted by me. Countless dinners, countless rides, countless excuses. I formatted the document, titled it Final Invoice, Private Use Abuse, and printed it. At the top, I wrote in pen, to be reimbursed or publicly exposed. Your choice. I placed it face down on the table. I wasn't sending it yet. I wanted them to feel the delay. I wanted them to sweat. That night, after washing my face and brushing my teeth, I walked into the bathroom and looked straight into the mirror. No makeup, no expression. Just me, finally quiet, but not small. I didn't need a pep talk. I needed presence. They won't break me by ignoring me, I whispered. They'll lose everything by underestimating me. And it wasn't a threat, it was a schedule. They kept telling their story louder. I started writing mine in silence. I couldn't sleep. Not that I even tried. Midnight found me sitting cross-legged on my office floor, the glow of my laptop the only light in the room. The hum of the air purifier buzzed like a second pulse, steady, distant. My hands moved without hesitation, typing in the passcodes I'd memorized long ago. Codes to a world my family never cared to understand because they never believed I had real power. I logged into the corporate backend of my private equity fund. A few taps, a couple of tabs, and there it was. Jet Reserve NTL, backed primarily by Harlow Holdings. My holdings. I clicked through the ownership file. 82%. Silent partner, yes, but majority stakeholder, which meant one very important clause mattered now more than ever. Authorization of use may be rescinded at sole discretion of majority stakeholder. I read that line twice, once as a professional, once as a daughter. They rode in my jet thinking I was baggage, I whispered. I printed the clause and set it beside the invoice, not for drama, just preparation. At 12:41 a.m., an email from Jet Reserve Legal pinged in. Attached were scanned copies of usage agreements related to the Maui leg. The contract listed me as the primary authorizing client with a signature at the bottom. My eyes narrowed. The strokes were nearly perfect, but I knew my own signature better than I knew the smell of my own skin. That wasn't mine. I dialed the Jet Reserve agent, put her on speaker. I never signed this, I said calmly. We're running a forensic check now, Ms. Harlow, the woman replied, voice clipped and professional. Initial data shows the login originated from Los Angeles, registered to a third-party marketing firm linked to Seraphine Vaughn's business account. I didn't blink, didn't ask for clarification. Thank you, I said. Please add this to the fraud report. I ended the call and stared out the window. The street below was empty, lit only by the orange hue of old street lamps. Somewhere out there, they were sleeping comfortably, unaware that a match had already been struck under everything they thought they controlled. I called Ophelie Carrick next. She picked up on the second ring. I was wondering when you'd call, she said. Can I stop the flight? I asked, no preamble. You can stop the next 20, she replied. And if they keep using your name, you can sue them into debt and memory. We drafted the cease and desist within the hour. I signed electronically, time-stamped it, encrypted it with a code only Ophelie and I shared, and scheduled it for dispatch at exactly 6:00 a.m. But I wasn't done yet. I logged into Jet Reserve's client portal and pulled up the active itinerary list. There it was, a confirmed outbound leg from Palm Springs to Maui, booked under Vaughn Green Family, scheduled to depart in less than 8 hours. I clicked into the manifest. Seraphine. Adrian. Isolde. Astria. No one else. I didn't hesitate. I hovered over the Revoke Corporate Access option and clicked. A confirmation window popped up. Are you sure you want to revoke access for this reservation? I smiled for the first time in days. Yes. The button turned gray. The page refreshed. I closed the laptop and leaned back in my chair. My body was tired, but my spirit had finally stepped into the room like it belonged there. By the time they reached the gate, the jet wouldn't be theirs, and I wouldn't be theirs either. The sun had barely begun to color the horizon when I pressed send. It was quiet in my Austin apartment, too quiet for the kind of decision I'd just made. But maybe that was fitting. Nothing about this chapter in my life had ever come with applause or announcements, just silence with teeth. The cease and desist notice landed in Jet Reserve's inbox at 6:01 a.m. My name, my title, my ownership percentage, all clearly outlined. I didn't need to threaten anyone. The legal weight of that signature was enough. In a second email to the CEO himself, I wrote, Use of aircraft ID number 73FC is hereby suspended pending internal review of all unauthorized bookings. Confirmed fraudulent activity traced to clients misrepresenting authority. Details attached. Attachments, metadata, IP logs, screenshots of falsified documents, and the forensic signature report. Within minutes, my phone buzzed. Ophelie. You just grounded a jet full of people without lifting a finger, she said. There was a pause between us, one filled with mutual respect, not small talk. Will they try to contest it? I asked. They can try, she replied, but they'll lose. Every document favors you, and if they push, we'll escalate. Let them escalate, I said. 2 hours later, while I sipped my coffee and watered the succulents on my balcony, I knew what was happening in Palm Springs. A private lounge full of people with expensive luggage, designer sunglasses, and no clue what was about to hit them. Jet Reserve staff approached the Vaughn Green party with apologetic smiles and stiff shoulders. There's a delay, the agent said. We've received a legal hold on this aircraft, ownership verification issue. Please return to the lounge while we resolve it. I wasn't there to see it, of course, but I didn't need to be. I knew exactly how each of them reacted. Seraphine would have scoffed, rolled her eyes, said something like, There must be a mistake. My sister signed off on this. Adrian would have gone quiet. He never liked conflict unless he was behind a screen. Mom would have stared, calculating how to shift blame without losing grace. And Dad? He probably pulled out his phone and texted someone. Fix this. I knew they called me. I saw the calls pile up on my screen. I didn't answer. Instead, I stood at a nearby airfield a few miles away, boarding a flight of my own. A different jet. Smaller, quieter, but mine. Destination. Solitude. My personal pilot greeted me like an old friend. I nodded, gave him the signal, and climbed the steps. As I passed the window, I caught a glimpse of the Jet Reserve aircraft, still on the ground, surrounded by confused staff and increasingly agitated passengers. My family, grounded, both literally and metaphorically. Funny, I murmured to myself. They thought they were leaving me behind, but I was the only one actually moving forward. The cabin door sealed shut behind me. I leaned back into the leather seat, watching the tarmac fade as we ascended into open sky. Mid-flight, I opened my tablet and cued a post on the official account of the Harlow Foundation. Caption: Legacy takes many forms. Mine just took off. The video, a slow-motion clip of me walking toward this jet, recorded weeks ago in anticipation. No words, just the click of heels, the hum of wind, and the closing of a cabin door. I set the post to publish in 20 minutes. Then I closed my eyes, not to sleep, but to feel the altitude wrap around my ribs, because the engine wasn't the only thing they heard roaring that morning. The air in Sedona was bone-dry and full of silence, the kind you don't find in cities, only in places that demand stillness. From the patio of my retreat villa, I could see the red cliffs catching the last of the light, casting long shadows across the valley. It was beautiful, peaceful, and completely interrupted by the flashing screen of my phone. 27 missed calls, 14 voicemails. Every name I didn't want to see lit up my screen in aggressive repetition. Seraphine, Isolde, Adrian, even Astria, who rarely called anyone unless it involved stock tips or scheduled apologies written by someone else. None of the voicemails started with, "I'm sorry," not a single one. They asked if I was proud of myself, if I knew how much I'd embarrassed them. One from Seraphine simply said, "How could you do this to us? You've always been dramatic, but this is low, even for you." I played each message once, never twice. No need. Later that evening, a knock at the front door broke the quiet. The FedEx logo greeted me before I opened it. A small envelope, return address, Isolde Marlowe. Of course. I carried it to the kitchen counter, sliced it open with a butter knife, and slid out 5 pages of perfectly slanted cursive, written in the only ink my mother trusted, navy blue. The first paragraph almost fooled me. It spoke of concern, of how things had gotten out of hand, of how family can sometimes drift apart but always finds its way back. But by page 2, the tone shifted. "We were trying to protect you from hurting yourself. Again," she wrote. Ah, there it was. And by the final line, "You're still family, even if you act like you aren't." I folded the letter, placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk, and labeled the file, Evidence, Personal. It joined the others, screenshots, emails, account records, all carefully sorted, all quietly damning. Meanwhile, chaos brewed on the other side of the screen. Seraphine's carefully curated image had started to crack. Her latest video, an overly emotional monologue about betrayal and misunderstood intentions, had gone viral, but not in the way she wanted. The comment section turned faster than a weather vane in a windstorm. Didn't her sister own that jet? Is this the same girl who posted about 7K seats like she was Oprah? And then came the Reddit thread, titled, Family Influencer Grounded. Literally, the top comment. That plane belongs to her sister. She didn't even pay for the fuel. I didn't have to post a single word. The truth had already found its way out. That night, as the sun dipped behind the cliffs and the sky turned deep lavender, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Lucien. "I don't want to pick sides," his text read. "But damn, Zinnia, I'm proud of you." I stared at the screen for a while, then typed, "You don't have to pick a side." I already chose mine. They thought they lost a flight. What they really lost was access. 3 days had passed since I grounded their plans. And in that time, my inbox had turned into a confession booth. Not from them, but from everyone else around them who wanted distance, deniability, and plausible excuses. Jet Reserve's PR manager emailed me early that morning. Short, precise. "We've suspended all bookings from Dre Holdings pending internal investigation." Attached was a screenshot of Seraphine's client profile, now flagged with a red banner. Account locked. Misrepresentation, unauthorized signatory. No call, no apology, no denial. Just the kind of email that speaks louder than anything they'd ever said to me. I forwarded it to Ophelie with a single note. No need for response. Just keep logging everything. No anger, just business. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. The desert was still and unapologetic, just like I wanted to be. Later that day, while scrolling through Reddit to clear my head, I found it. A thread titled Family Influencer Grounded, literally. The top comment had over 12,000 upvotes. Wait, wasn't that jet owned by her sister? The same sister she mocked in a video last month? Then came the others. She posted that 7K shade, now can't even board the flight? Every brand should be watching this unfold. Yikes. By nightfall, I'd received quiet emails from 2 sponsors that had previously collaborated with Seraphine, not to me directly, just CC'd from my firm's PR watch list. Her name had been pulled from pending campaigns, listed as in review. I didn't feel triumphant, just steady. There was no music swelling, no moment of I told you so, only a long, exhaling silence, the kind that comes after you finally stop holding your breath. That evening, while sitting on the balcony wrapped in an old sweater, I opened a letter from a scholarship recipient. A girl named Marissa, 22, training to be a nurse. One paragraph caught my eye. Thank you for believing in people no one else sees. I didn't think people like you existed until I read your story. I pressed the letter to my chest and whispered, I used to be that girl. I had tried so hard to be seen by people who refused to look, all while investing in strangers who only hoped for a chance. That irony didn't sting anymore. It gave me purpose. And then, like clockwork, the internet shifted again. Seraphine posted a video, black and white filter, piano music in the background. She looked directly at the camera, lips trembling like she'd rehearsed the look 100 times. We all make mistakes, she said, voice shaking. Family is hard. Comments poured in, split down the middle. Some offered sympathy, asking for forgiveness in her name. Others weren't so generous. She's only crying now because it cost her followers. Funny how no one cried when Zinnia was being erased. I watched it once, then texted Lucian. If she cries in high definition, does it count more? He replied almost instantly. Only if there's a refund policy. I laughed, really laughed. Not bitter, not broken, just released. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty watching them fall. Just finally, free. By late morning, the desert air had warmed just enough to make the wind feel like breath instead of bite. I sat at the edge of the small writing desk in the villa, coffee cooling beside my elbow, the cursor blinking on a blank email thread titled Family Finance Group. I typed one sentence. As of today, access to my accounts, privileges, and financial support has ended permanently. Then I opened every tab I needed, the insurance portal, the board delegate access page, and the family fund's admin dashboard. One by one, I revoked permissions. No more authorized charges, no more silent approvals, no more open-ended obligations masked as familial loyalty. When the last window closed, I watched the confirmation messages stack on the screen like bricks sealing an old door. My phone vibrated once. The group chat showed, seen by Seraphine. No reply, not even a period. Good. I stood, walked to the bookshelf near the window, and pulled down a small external drive labeled Old iPhone Sync. Dust rose when I popped it open on my laptop. The folders inside had names I hadn't touched in years. 2018 holidays, Harlow BBQs, Europe, canceled trip. I clicked Family Holidays, past. There they were, photos I had taken, edited, and emailed to everyone with, let me know if you want prints. Most had never replied. I paused on one image from a 4th of July weekend. Everyone was facing the camera, laughing, arms draped over each other. In the far left corner, blurred but unmistakable, was the side of my face, cut off like a photographer's mistake. I had taken the shot on a timer and run into frame too late. I dragged the file into a new folder. Proof, not memories. Later that night, long after the sun had melted into the cliffs and the crickets had resumed their nightly routine, my phone buzzed again. A text from Adrian. You were right. They crossed a line. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I stared at it, phone dim against my thigh, and did nothing. Adrian's silence when it mattered had already spoken loud enough. I didn't need closure from someone who'd only found a voice after the storm. I let the screen go black. The next morning, I put on my hiking boots and set out along the red rock trail that wrapped behind the villa. No music, no phone in my hand. Just the sound of gravel crunching beneath my feet and the whisper of the wind skimming across dry earth. Somewhere near the halfway mark, I paused, placing my hand on the trunk of a juniper tree, and exhaled. You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. I had heard that quote years ago in therapy. Back then, it sounded dramatic, selfish even, but now, standing under an open sky that asked nothing of me, I understood it completely. I didn't burn bridges. I simply stopped letting others build fires with my name. They could call it betrayal, bitterness, pride. Let them. I knew what it really was, sovereignty, and it was silent. They thought silence meant surrender. I made it my signature. The sun hadn't fully broken over the Austin skyline when my phone buzzed with the alert. Deposit received, 7,000, Seraphine Vaughn, no message, no subject line, no apology, just money, cold and exact, like settling a debt with a vending machine. I didn't flinch. I didn't even let myself feel satisfied. Instead, I logged into the Harlow Fund portal, redirected the full amount to the scholarship account for women in healthcare, and typed a note. For the girls like me, before they forget themselves trying to be accepted. The transaction cleared instantly, and with it, any remaining piece of me that thought their guilt could buy my peace. An hour later, a courier rang the bell at my parents' front door in Westlake. A sleek black box, no logo. Inside, wrapped in dark velvet, was a custom miniature jet, a perfect replica of the one they never boarded again. On its silver base, a plaque read, "Paid in full, ZH." Beneath it, neatly folded, was a printed, itemized invoice. Jet reserve booking fee, $12,000. Emergency medical deductibles, Dad, $2,800. Personal loans, Seraphine Adrian, $6,300. Marketing buy-in, Dre Holdings gift, $3,000. Miscellaneous unpaid expenses, $4,100. Emotional labor, non-billable. At the bottom, one sentence stood alone. This is the last thing I will ever deliver in your name. I would never know how long they stared at it, or what words were exchanged. And I didn't need to. Some packages don't require a signature. Later that evening, I sat at my desk, sipping tea, and pulled up a short, grainy security clip I'd obtained from a contact at Jet Reserve. The video showed the moment airport staff stopped Seraphine at the gate. She was mid-laugh, mascara perfect, heels clicking, entourage in tow, when the ground crew stepped forward. The expression on her face as they told her the jet had been grounded by the owner. That's the one I saved. I watched the video once more, then encrypted it and stored it under a new folder. Proof of pattern. I didn't smile, but for the first time, my eyes didn't flinch. The next day, I hiked the Sedona Ridge Trail again. The wind had changed, cooler now, carrying dust and closure. When I reached the summit, I pulled from my backpack a folded itinerary, the original family vacation schedule that had never included me. I held it for a moment, thumb brushing over the glossy paper, then let it slip through my fingers and into the canyon below. I don't need to rewrite history, I whispered. I'm just not letting them write mine anymore. There would be no grand reunion, no last-minute plea, just space, and the boundaries I rebuilt with brick and silence.